So, does your writing have integrity? What is integrity in your writing? And how can you tell whether you have it and how to get more? Hi, everybody. I'm Ricky Heller from rickyheller.com, and I help people write their books and get them out into the world so that they can finish their manuscripts and have them sound like themselves. So I wanted to talk about integrity today in writing because this is something that I think is a really important point that many of us don't address. And, we all know what integrity is in work and in our business lives and in our personal lives. I mean, people have their individual definitions, but in general, when we talk about integrity, we talk about someone who we can trust, right? Someone who does what they say they're going to do, who is reliable. They do what they say they're going to do. And they say what they're going to do and then do it. Well, it's very, very similar in writing. So when you're writing, if you're looking for integrity in your writing, it's the concept of being true to your word so that the words you use in reverse are true to you. Does your writing sound like you? Does it sound natural to you? Does it sound like something you would say? And if you're not comfortable saying a word, then I believe you should not be using that word in writing. I want to give you an example that I think is really indicative of this. So when I was teaching at the college, we had a plagiarism case one year, and I was on the committee for the plagiarism, and so it was a student who um, was charged with plagiarizing her work, and it was our job as the committee to determine if she really had written this or if it was indeed plagiarized. And so there were about 6 of us in the committee, and we went around a circle and we asked her. My question was, in this sentence here, you use the word abysmal. Could you please tell me what that means? And she said, no, I don't know what it means. Okay. Next person said, over here you talk about the proclivity of the protagonist. So what does proclivity mean? And she said, I don't know. And this went on around the whole table. And finally, at the end of these 6 people, and she couldn't define a single word that we had asked her about that was in her essay, the chair of the committee said, this is a bit frustrating because you can't seem to tell us what any of these words mean. Why should we believe that you even wrote this? And she said, well, I knew what they meant when I wrote it, but I forget. Clearly, this was someone who was not comfortable with that language. I don't know whether she thought she knew the words at the time. And in the end, she was charged with plagiarism because her professor found the exact text online from various sources that were like the New York Times and major publications where it was word for word. So clearly she had copied it. But that always struck me as that someone could say, I used to know what it meant 2 weeks ago when I wrote this essay, but now I forget. And think that that was something people would believe and was okay, right? So if you don't know what a word means, don't use that word. That is not the way to create integrity in your writing. So I think this can happen. This can fall in 2 areas. And it's not always something that should necessarily indicate that you're plagiarizing or that you shouldn't be using the words, because some of us love words. I love language. When I was a little kid, the first book that I got as a gift for a birthday, I think I was like 6 or something. I was just learning how to read in school. We were sounding out the letters A, apple, B, butter, C, cat. I don't even know if they teach reading that way anymore, but that's how I learned it. You had to know the sound of each letter and you would sound out a letter. So like for the word cat, you go cat, you would take the sound of each letter. Anyway, I got this book and I was thrilled with this book, and I was walking around reading it to my family, all about Merce Rabbit. And finally, my mother said to me, Merce Rabbit, what are you talking about? Well, the book was called Mrs. Rabbit and Her Little Rabbits or something. MRS is, of course, how you spell Mrs. in the abbreviated form. So I was just sounding it out. So this kind of problem can happen to people, right? Where maybe they sound something out from the written version and they haven't heard it. And so they don't know exactly what the pronunciation is. I recently was talking to a colleague who told me about a boss who uses the word epitome quite frequently, Epitome. Now, if you've only read that word and you've never pronounced it, you wouldn't know that it's pronounced epitome. You might have heard the word epitome and not known how it's written. So the opposite can happen too, where maybe you just hear a word and you don't know how it's spelled, so you assume a spelling when you're writing. This happened to my dad many times over his life. My dad was an immigrant whose second language was, no, I think it was like his fourth language was English, but English was not his first language. And he used to talk about going to the grocery store and buying a letta. And it took me a while to figure it out. What's a letta? Well, he had only heard the term lettuce for this vegetable, and he just assumed lettuce was the plural and letta was the singular, right? Because again, he wasn't an English reader. So it's really important, if you want to avoid those kind of errors, what's the way to ensure that you can have that alignment, that integrity in your writing that matches the way you speak, that matches your own vocabulary, right? So you're not using words that you think belong in an email or you think belong in a proposal, but words that are actually reflective of who you are and sound like you. And the best way to achieve that is to read. Read, 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 read. And when you read, be sure that you are looking up the definitions of words that you don't already know. And this serves a purpose two ways. So of course, you're going to find out what the meaning of the word is, but also it's going to help you with the pronunciation. So when I come across a new word, I always look it up in the dictionary immediately, because the dictionary tells me how to say that word as well. So if I looked up Epitome, I would know from the dictionary that it's pronounced epitome. And I would not assume it's pronounced epitome, even though that's what my mind thinks it should sound like. So that's a great way to increase the integrity in your writing, because as your vocabulary grows, you're going to have a plethora of words at your disposal that you can use when you're writing that will sound natural to you because they are natural to you. And the larger your range, the larger the vocabulary, the easier it is for you to get your message across to your audience in such a way that it resonates with them, that they feel like they know you, and that they want to buy from you. So I think it's really important to have integrity in all areas of life, but also in our writing. So I hope that was helpful. Please, if it is, give me a like or let me know what you think in the comments, wherever they may be. I would love to hear from you, and I always read and respond to comments. If you're looking for more help with writing and you're thinking about writing a book, there is a book inside of you, I promise. And how do you find that topic for your book? I've got a guide that can help you, my 3 tips to find your book's topic, even if you have no idea what it is right now. So just go to rickiheller.com/guide, and you can grab that guide to finding your book's topic and figure out where your writing will go next. All right, everybody, hope that's helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time again.